What is something you shouldn't be afraid of? Criticism and not being liked by everyone. They are impossible to avoid, so we should just accept them and make the best of it. Saying sorry when you're wrong. Integrity is not a weakness. Rejection and embarrassment. It will happen to you, in some form or another. It's best to experience it, come through it, and realize it doesn't kill you. I wish I could go back to younger me and show them the truth. It would have felt like a superpower back then when fear or rejection loomed in my mind and hamstrung me. Turbulence on an airplane. I once saw an amazing video of a pilot explaining that turbulence is no different than bumps on a road. This might seem obvious to others, but he told viewers to close their eyes while sitting on a bus. It's just as shaky, but we can see the environment and why it's shaky, so it doesn't scare us as much. I've been much calmer during turbulence since then, even strong turbulence. I watched a similar video. The pilot was so perplexed on why people were afraid of turbulence. I travel for work and have flown through some crazy turbulence. Always baffled me why people scream, even in the event of an emergency. Screaming does nothing but annoy me before my impending doom. Failure. Most of the failure people fear is not even that. It's just part of the trial and error of every process. If someone bought Frosted Flakes and didn't like it, they wouldn't consider themselves a human failure for buying it. They'd just know they probably don't like cereals that sweet, or cornflakes, and get something else the next time. The goal is to get something you like for breakfast, not eat Frosted Flakes. If you ask someone out and they say no, if you apply for a job and don't get it, or have a job and don't do well at it, if you don't get a good grade on an exam or even in the whole course, if you don't get into your dream school, these are all the Frosted Flakes. The goal is to date someone you like, and likes you back, to get a job, to get a good education, etc. That's the breakfast. Eyes on the prize. Little kids. Sure, they are dangerous, but remember, you are stronger and bigger. Certain medical procedures get a bad scary connotation, but are actually a breeze. Colonoscopies, root canals, and vasectomies come to mind. The prep admittedly sucks for this one, but still not scary. Eating by yourself at a restaurant is insanely underrated. I eased my way into it by sitting at a bar if they had it, but now I'm perfectly comfortable sitting at a table by myself. Sometimes it's nice to enjoy food without having to worry about carrying on a conversation. Making everyone else happy, even family. Sometimes you have to put yourself first. Sometimes you have to put yourself first. Well, the real question is when? Being judged by others. You will become way less concerned with what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. COVID-19 vaccines. I got the Pfizer 2-shot vaccine and last night was awful. The first vaccine, I had a really tender arm for a day or two. The second one I got a fever, unbelievable shakes, chills, etc. I sweated through my outfit and needed 3 blankets. After the fever broke, my whole body was just absolute misery. I'm pretty sure I have some minor injuries from shivering so hard, but it's now almost 24 hours since I got the second dose. I took some Tylenol, got a brief shower in, and took a Vistaril. It's prescribed to me for anxiety, but it's a muscle relaxer too. I'm almost back at 100% already. 2/10, but a million times better than drowning in my own lung fluid. Being rude in order to remove yourself from an uncomfortable situation. Listen to that little voice in your head that says this isn't safe and don't worry about pissing people off. Took me years to accept that I don't have to be nice to strangers if I feel uncomfortable. Predators look for those kinds of people that are worried about making a scene. My safety is more important than your feelings. Spiders and bees, but F wasps. I know this is strange, but it's the spider web that freaks me out. The way it looks and feels is terrifying to me, especially the big orb webs. I walked into a big web years ago and was fighting to get that sticky web off of me. I was almost in shock. I had pieces of the spider all over me. Needles. Do you require a pint of blood? Have fun with it. The dentist. A lot of ordinary folk have terrible fears of the dentist rooted in childhood, and it actively puts them off going as adults until it's too late and they are either in agony or now need extensive and expensive work done from years of neglected maintenance. My family grew up poor, so we used to be sent to the free poverty dental clinic as kids. The sadists who worked there were awful, rough, Impatient. I once had a tooth pulled out with no injection or anesthetic. Traumatized. As a result, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I avoided the dentist like the plague until one night I woke up in bed screaming with toothache. I had to make an emergency appointment the next day. I ended up having a tooth extracted, another 2 teeth scheduled for extraction and 2 fillings. I realize that dentists in this day and age are different to the butchers at the poor kids free clinic. Nowadays, most dental practices are private businesses, so they go out of their way to take care of you and make it as easy on you as possible. Besides which, there is nothing a dentist can do to you that hurts more than toothache. Once I got my mouth sorted and the dentist was able to give me guidance and advice. I go every 6 months for a checkup and clean. That incident was over 20 years ago and I haven't needed so much as a filling in all that time. Nuclear energy. Renewables are nice and all, and we should champion the hell out of them when we can. But, for the long term, best option for mostly clean energy that can do the most to alleviate the pressures of climate change on a mass scale, nuclear is best option we have. Modern reactors are much more safe than their 1950s counterparts, much more efficient, and you can reuse the waste products of nuclear fuel multiple times over, reducing the overall amount of nuclear waste. Until such time we develop a fusion reactor, building as many modern fission reactors as we can is really the best long-term solution for our environmental future. The only problematic part of nuclear power is really just the nuclear waste. Apart from that, nuclear power is completely safe and efficient, and as I recently found out, even cleaner than wind turbines. The Boeing 737 Maximum. It's crazy how people spend the money to rebook their flights because they find out their flight is on one. It's a hella safe airplane now. There are hundreds and hundreds flying around all day every day around the world. Your government. The government should fear the people. My government has such fear of people that it wants to read our messages. Horror movies. We know they're just films and not real. I haven't been scared by a horror movie in a long time. But horror video games are a different story. Even though it's not real, knowing your own choices can have consequences is quite terrifying. Do not be afraid of going through the process of learning. I remember when I started learning how to drive, I just cold at reverse turns and stuff, and my instructor used to get super frustrated at me. In turn, I felt bad cause everyone in my family is an excellent driver, so I thought I would be too, but I just wasn't able to do something so damn easy. I took the exam before I felt ready for it and I failed. I felt like sh cause none of the people I knew had failed their driver's exam. It all got to a point where it was so stressful and anxiety inducing that I had to take months off from it cause I just couldn't get over the feeling of failure. It was a few months later that I opened up to my family about it. Turns out, they were drivers too. They started telling me their stories about that time they couldn't park their damn cars and how they had annoyed that guy in traffic by driving damn slow cause they were paranoid. All this made me realize how much of what I was feeling was all because of stuff I had made up in my head. I was the only one putting uncalled for pressure on myself, so I got back to it. This time around I felt strangely more confident in my ability. It took time, focus and practice, and I was finally able to pass my exam. My takeaway from this experience was, most times we put way too much pressure on ourselves while learning something for the first time. Give yourself time. Be confident. You're learning. Hence making mistakes is okay. This incident really influenced me a lot. Failure. It's how we learn. Think of a baby learning to walk. The kid has to try and fail till the file become less and mess and he is walking. Failure doesn't make us bad people. Death. I'm not saying we should chase it or end your life or something, but every single one of us will meet death one day, and that day could be seconds from now to decades. It's simply fate and reality. We should not fear it but address it with reason and forethought. To quote the movie Fight Club, no, not fear that you will die one day. People deal with the idea of not existing in very interesting ways. Many face it with fear and turn to religion, refusing to believe they will simply no longer be. Most fall to their ego and begin build some sort of legacy. If you really want to know yourself, study your own reaction to this fate and reality. If you don't know what you deem most important for your life, realistically and honestly address the idea of your own mortality. Tarantulas. They're like us in the sense that they don't want to be bothered. They're not actively trying to hurt you. They prefer to run away and will only get defensive when they feel cornered. What the random people in stores or around on vacations think of you. There's a great deal of freedom that comes with not giving a ref about what randos think of you when you're out. Sing in public. Dance. Just have fun and forget about everyone else. Too many people are scared to be themselves.